see how battered, how battered it is? I mean, oh, Clementi, one of his, I told you about his sonatas, right? I have to tell you about this, though. This wonderful, charming sonata in D major. There's something that sparkles. There's something that sparkles in Clementi. I have not found the same spark in the sonatas of Mozart. They're beautiful, they're fine, but there's some buoyancy that's missing. And Beethoven is very somber many times, and I mean, you can't get into that. I was not emotionally ready at a young age to play Beethoven. He scared me, frankly. And but Clementi, yes. And in one of his sonatas he has is a let's go on. And of course, he gets a little esoteric in the middle here too. But and I won't dare sloth throw it or anything. But so it was time to take the next step. The next step was I wanted to flaunt my octaves. So my teacher said, okay, all right, Mendelssohn. And I have a concerto for you that has plenty of octaves in it, and plenty of everything else. And as a matter of fact, this concerto, the Mendelssohn concerto, G minor, I learned it like a snap. I mean, I just devoured it. And I also had to play it with the local orchestra, the Springfield Orchestra. They would bus in the school children, and I had scheduled 3 performances of it. Okay, so the same day I had to play concerto. So I played it for the school children. The children, they loved it. And I played it for another group from the other side of town. They loved it. And the last group, something happened. So we played it then a 3rd time, which was the last time, the 3rd time. And after I finished it, the kids and the people, they were by this time adults and people, and they wouldn't let me get off the stage because I had failed to prepare an encore. I couldn't think of an encore, and they said, "Play it again, play it again, play it again." You know, I had to play the whole concerto again. Well, it starts out very seriously. was a marvelous concerto, full of octaves, and all through the place here. Here's some more. Well, I got to show off my octaves, but I must tell you that in addition to that, this Mendelssohn concerto has one of the most beautiful slow movements. Because the concerto was like a sonata. Brilliant first movement, slow, brilliant last movement, okay? And this just got me every time. And everything would, after a rousing arpeggio, well, okay, so the orchestra fumed and fussed. Finally, it got very quiet. Cello, would come in. Melody comes back with the full orchestra while the piano is weaving all around like lace over it, and it's just extraordinary. And of course, I'm not even going to attempt it in the last movement because I can only assure you that it does end in octaves. Okay. So, no, it doesn't. Yeah, yes, it does. What am I saying? And so I was in business, but then, and then also other pieces by Mendelssohn which were so wonderful. He's very good with octaves, I must tell you. But also with light effervescent, and then. I can't, very, very very charming music. And but then came I was in the big leagues now, and I was in trouble because along comes Chopin. Well, Chopin wrote a series of studies for the piano called etudes. And that's the real test. Now, let me point out a couple of things about piano playing. As I developed here, there were certain things that were pointed out to me that were important. One was a bel canto singing tone, as opposed to, and here's the way it works. If you have an accompaniment figure in a melody, you don't play all the parts equal. I hear many pianists today, over the FM or whatever, and they play things like that's playing it straight. But we were taught to put a firmer edge on that first joint in your finger. And here's the difference. First of all, the way it's often being done. And now this is the bel canto. Proper row there, you know? And that was it's also it seemed that there were two broad approaches to the keyboard. One was German. They felt that essentially you had to strengthen the fingers, they had to take control. And then there was the other that sort of came out of the change of piano writing. And a man by the name of Ludwig Depp, and there was and I think the Polish and French approaches to the keyboard, and it was to use your weight, natural weight of the arms. Now, weight players often became very heavy players like that, but if you take the weight out, I call it pivotal playing, because you use the wrist as a pivot, the elbow as a pivot, everything is a pivot, but look out, don't let the weight get too heavy. I remember that because at one point I was playing something by Schumann, a study. And someone came behind me and lifted my arms up. He said, "Come on, lighten up. Don't overdo this business in here." So that came. going to be a performance today. All right? It's a demo.
Small.
It's a demonstration. So that, because I don't want to get myself into a situation I can't manage. Oh yes. Oh, the wonderful Rondo Capriccioso. Well, I had much more planned, but what happened was that my teacher became more and more possessive, more difficult, and matter of fact, when I was a child, I played for the owner of the Wickham Piano Play Company in Springfield. And he was a wonderful man, lived in a big Victorian mansion on High Street. And I must have been, well, I had to be somewhere between, like I say, I had to be either 1940 or 1945, somewhere in between there. And this man, first of all, I had this old beat up, my mother's piano, upright piano. I was always in search for a good piano, always my entire life. I would go to homes, I would go to YWCAs, I would go to any official building that had a grand piano in it so I could practice with a grand action. You know? And my whole life was the search for a good piano. Had I had this, I would have said, just leave me alone for the next 50 years. But I didn't. I was taken to play for Mr. Wickham, and he was retired, but he had this beautiful Mason Hamlin grand piano, made by the company, especially for him. And I played that evening, and I played things like, well, since I... Mind you, I must have been 8 or 9, somewhere around there. Because it seemed to me I was playing that piece all my life. I don't know. And he came over to me. I have to say this to keep it a secret. He was a bit of a boozer. He was, and he came over and said, "You like that piano?" And he started taking money out of his wallet and stuffing it. I was wearing short pants. He would stuff it in my pockets. I thought, money in my pockets. Ooh, ooh. And he said, "You don't like that piano?" He says, He says, it's yours.
Wow.
And he literally gave me this beautifully built piano, grand piano, about a 5'7" width, which I never again had the chance to play. Because my teacher sold the instrument and put the money in his bank account.
Oh my God. Sure.
And then he took me to New York with him while he was judging at Juilliard, and took me to lunch with Rosina Levine, the #1 teacher there after August Samaroff. And Rosina Levine thought I was going to be her student. And everything was all set up, but you play for the scholarship committee. Well, she was the head of the scholarship committee. And everything. Well, my teacher, who knew what he was doing, he ruined my scholarship there. So I would have to stay in Ohio with him. I realized, well, he did it by, he knew that you don't have lunch. You don't go to lunch with Rosina Levine and say you don't want to study with her, right? That's an insult. No? Well, the scholarship, I played for the scholarship, I knew it was set, because I heard all the other ones play, and I could cut them. And I felt buoyant, I was going, and all the people on the scholarship, they jumped up on the stage, look around. Well, we'll see you, you know. I mean, of course I had to take a battery of tests, like theory and other stuff like that. But they said, we'll see you in the fall. Yeah. Oh, one. I get back, and everyone came up to me except Rosina Levine, who looked at my papers and saw the name Sasha Gordoninsky that my teacher told me to put down. I don't want you to study with her, I want you to study with Sasha Gordoninsky, whom he didn't even know anything about. And that ruined, and Levine never looked at me, wouldn't respond or anything, even when I tried to write or tried to, nothing. So I figured it was time to leave. And my teacher at that time, I was about 17, and later, and when I got to be 17, I figured the only way I could get out was the draft, the military draft. All right, now that, I'm sure I probably don't have time to tell you about Washington, D.C. and Eisenhower and all that. Maybe I'll just run through it very quickly, okay? I went to Washington, I went to boot camp, and survived. And I went to Washington, D.C. to the Navy School of Music. Everything was jazz there, you know? And I didn't know anything about jazz. I couldn't, they trained for combos to put on board ship. But what do you do with a classical pianist? They didn't know what to do with me. So I figured I got to do something. So I practiced and I went around DC and I found a hall. Here again, it was the YWCA called Barker Hall, but it was a free hall and a beautiful piano. And I gave a concert there. And then someone who just happened to attend the concert with a group of young girls was Catherine Frost, who in turn was a friend of Catherine Schaus, who gave Wolf Trap to Performing Arts Center to Washington, D.C. And she also, Catherine Frost taught, she had studied with Rudolf Serkin, and she taught at the Houghton Arms School for Girls in Washington, D.C. in the embassy area. She invited me over to play. She said, would you come over and play for the girls? Well, when you're 21 years of age. Naturally, you'll play for the girls. And I went over and I gave a concert for the students. And they were all excited. And I didn't know, but a lot of their fathers were on Eisenhower's cabinet. And Mrs. Frost said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, they're going to train me after 9 months and then send me out on a ship in the middle of the Pacific. No, we can't have that. Can't have that, she said. We must, she said, could you come to some dinner parties I'm going to give? I said, sure. She gave 15. And it just so happened at the time Horowitz came out with his piano version of the Stars and Stripes Forever, which I had already copied by ear from a recording. And so I started practicing that. I mean, you know that. I don't know if you've heard that. You know that. And especially the piccolo. All right. Well, at any rate, there's a piccolo part there. And I would play the piccolo part and the melody and the bass too. And she invited a lot of military people. And at one dinner party, there was the Secretary of the Navy. I mean, not the Navy. They avoided that because I was in the Navy. They had the Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Air Force, everybody who was the Secretary of anything military. And they all kept saying, well, if the Navy doesn't treat you right, we'll put you in the Air Force band. And I said, can that be done? And they said, young man, this is Washington. Anything can be done. And to make a long story short, I was suffering on the base. They put me, they heard my commanding officer thought I was playing politics. He called me in, scolded me, and put me in charge of the barracks latrine. I thought of Andy Griffith in No Time for Sergeants, where he had to clean the latrines all the time in that movie. I don't know, but anyway, but I kept playing at these dinner parties, and in the meantime, I ran into an orphanage, and I was helping the children at the orphanage, and there was an admiral on the board at the orphanage as well. And then the senators, I met everybody in Washington, there was anybody. What's her name, of the Thin Man, Myrna Loy was there, Abbott and Costello. I rubbed noses with Jean Crane, the actress. I was on several, it was Zazu Pitts. I mean, there were a lot of people that Catherine Frost, she loved to give parties. And so the upshot of it all was that Eisenhower had a cabinet meeting, what to do with Tuvelle. And that's literally what was, and I was told that in Maine Navy, the head of the Navy, that Admiral Arleigh Burke, the head of all the Navy, they were getting tons and tons of calls because a lot of senators came to the parties that she was giving, Catherine was giving. And I really should detail this sometime. It was amazing. The next thing you know, well, I said, I got to check out the pianist the classical pianist who's already with the band. And I went to hear him, and I figured, I think I could cut him. And but there was no billet, there was no room for. So suddenly, my commanding officer called me and I said, "Here comes another scolding." And he looked at me like, "How did you do it?" I hadn't received word. I said, "Do what?" I thought he was referring to the latrines and something. You have a presidential appointment here to appear at the Navy Band as their piano soloist. And directly from the White House.
Wow.
And I was dazed. The children of the orphanage said, "You came back to the orphanage, you look kind of weird." And So I thought, well, I've done it. I'm staying in Washington. I'll be able to play the piano. It's wonderful. That's all I wanted to do was play the piano. And of course, the conductor of the Navy band and orchestra, that ensemble was the most symphonic sounding. They were the finest. Commander Brenner thought he was, who was the fellow with the Boston Pops? Arthur Fiedler. He thought he was an Arthur Fiedler type, you know. He had this symphonic sound. He wanted this symphonic sound. Well, I go over to where the Navy band was. The players didn't pay any attention. They didn't like me. They didn't want to. And he avoided me. And I thought, oh, big deal. Here I am. What am I doing now? So he threw a concerto at me after I named about 20 concertos that I knew. He threw this Rhapsody on the Theme of Paganini by Rachmaninoff. You don't want to look at the score.
Yeah, sure.
And essentially goes like this. And then of course there's that beautiful slow movement. Well, I had never seen the score before. Why? After all his concertos that I named, he picked that. He wanted to prove that he should have been the one to get the pianist, not some politicians. And so he threw it at me and said, if you can play that, we'll start rehearsals in 4 weeks. I took it. By this time, I was living at the orphanage with they invited me to come and live there and work with the children. I took it because also on the board of directors of the orphanage was a man by the name of Hugo Wirch. And he was the Baldwin Theater for Washington, D.C. And he, excuse me a moment here. Oh. He was on the board and he sent a concert grand piano, which later became mine. And I said, I can't afford a concert grand piano. He said, you're working with the children, you've got it. You've got it. And there comes that moment in everyone's life when you stand and you say to yourself, what am I talking about? At any rate, in 3 weeks, the commander got nervous, called a rehearsal. So we started rehearsing, and the band members and the orchestra members were like, yeah, they were sort of schlepping. They started, this tempo with the speed, as I said before, was this. And if you're a nobody in the Navy, you don't say to a commander, Commander, I think you got the wrong tempo. Can we go a little bit faster? And so I pushed it, I kept pushing the tempo. Finally it came to a point where I had to play by myself, like a cadenza, a solo. And I can't even play it now for you, but I ripped through that from one end of the piano to the other. And by that they got the idea, they got the tempo. And we went on to finish the whole thing. And afterwards, all the band members, everybody stood up and applauded. The commander came rushing over towards me, cursing. I thought, what did I do wrong now? And he said, why didn't you tell me you could play like this? Washington playing and meeting celebrities and politicians and other people of note. And all I ever wanted, like a child on Main Street there, all I ever wanted was to be left alone. I used to go up in the cliffs in Springfield and just sit there waiting for an Indian to come by. It was a trail of tears that the government forced the Shawnee Indians to evacuate Ohio. Terrible thing to do. We had a Shawnee hotel with a European chef. We had another hotel with it was a very cosmopolitan little community. You know? I mean, when an orchestra plays outdoors, gives summer concerts in a park, I mean, that's pretty progressive. We even had a fellow that played the violin, his practice at violin in a restaurant, in the commode in the restaurant. I mean, he was one of the town characters. He was an English teacher, or a music teacher rather, and he was also in the faculty, but the faculty studio. So, and then of course, in 1970 I came to Danbury, along with a sporting, a good-looking son, whom many secrets I've not, I haven't told him everything. But he's sitting back. And that's the story. And the only thing I could think of was there was a little piece. I don't know whether it's worth playing. And now I was going to go through show you what Chopin had to do with the hands. Like it's like doing your push-ups. Take two fingers here and press the keys down, and take the out ones. It's like doing your push-ups on the floor, you know. And he also wrote one for just the black keys. Well, at any rate, you can see how shaped that I am. At least I got through that way. It's QA time or Would anybody have any questions, or do you want me to shut up and sit down and play?
Did you ever learn to play jazz?
What?
Did you ever learn to play jazz?
Did I ever learn to play
You
jazz?
made some little intermittent jazz.
Well, I love jazz. I mean, but I only read it from the notes. I read it. If I have to sit down and improvise jazz-wise, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I can't. I can fake it a little bit, but that's about it. Yeah. And so it's a life of, and I spend hours upon hours upon hours. 8 hours a day I would practice in the summers. I had always either my teacher, whose farm I had to live on and practice the whole time, or my mother on me all the time. I had somebody on me all the time, and every place I went, even when I was a kid and I was barefoot, and I'd walk into a music store and there would be a beautiful shiny new instrument, and I'd sit down and play it. There was always a crowd around. You know? That's the reason I'd go up in the parks and out in the country, into the woods, just to be alone, to get away from it all. I wanted to be a normal kid, or I don't know what a normal kid is. Normally I wanted to be a normal kid. Or maybe it's the other way around. Normally I wanted to be an abnormal. No.
How long were you in the military?
What?
How long were you in the military?
How old what?
How long were you in the military? How long were you in the military?
I was in the military for 3 years. I played, we made the debut of that Rachmaninoff piece on the barge there by the bridge at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, the bridge that goes over into Arlington. over to the cemetery, and there was an area there called the Watergate. This was before the word Watergate became infamous. And it was a Watergate barge. People from the Potomac, oh, I have to tell you one thing. We had a rehearsal there that afternoon before the evening concert, or it might have even been the concert itself. And the river, the Potomac River, the airplanes going to the airport would follow the river. All right? And so, just as we were doing it, I was getting to this, I could hear the airplane coming. So I tried to do a little extra stuff here, like here, and Brendan, the conductor, looked down and, what the hell are you doing? The airplane. So I waited there, finally got a, meow, and then, I didn't want the airplane to come over while I played that. Saved the day. That was a performance before about 4,000 to 6,000 people. The Washington Post called it an electric performance. And I was in. The children of the orphanage were there too, and of course they were down the road like, "Why did you move that way?" or "What did you do?" All kinds of questions, you know, kids. But then I played several other performances. I did a Weber Concertstück. I did a Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody, Fantasy for Orchestra Talent, and I was on call at the White House. I played at the White House, and Eisenhower, in the basement. They had, not in the basement, the floor under the East Room, was the President's Library. And in the President's Library they had a huge concert grand ballroom with a silver eagle on the fallboard. And I would be warming up to play upstairs on the old Steinway with the eagles on the legs. And Eisenhower would come down and sit, and you know, it's too bad that I heard tell his favorite piece was Home on the Range. It was just too bad, but he liked to hear me warming up, so we chatted a little bit each time, and I said, you know, and I said to myself, you know, remember, I was in short pants running on my grandmother's porch when he was winning the war, a war in Europe, and I told him that, you know. And I said, frankly, I don't know what I'm doing here. And he looked at me and he says, I don't know what I'm doing here either. Both of us rather saying he'd rather be in Kansas and I'd rather be on Main Street digging my hand into the bucket of discarded icing and making a quick getaway. So that was it. It was a charming childhood, I must say, that I had in some respects. It was a beautiful town. It was a very nice era when, you know, you didn't have to worry about being out late or anything like that. The kids were all over the place. And I used to wear a pair of my mother's old gloves up to here, put on a bathing suit, and take one of my sisters'. They didn't have Pampers then. I'd take one of my sister's cloth diapers, tie on the back, I fancied myself Robin Hood. Because the boy up the street was a big guy, and he made himself a beautiful Batman costume. So it was Batman and Robin Hood on Main Street.
I'm wondering, when you lost your ear, the whisper in your ear, and had to go on to the formal reading music and such, was that,
I didn't quite get that.
was the transition from the whisper in your ear when you were tiny
Yeah,
to actually reading music
Yeah.
and formally
yeah.
doing music? Was that an automatic transition?
Well, I think it was probably gradual, but I'll tell you this, that I was very smitten by a little boy, Bobby Higginbotham. In those days, the movie houses, of which there were 5 in downtown area, we had no uptown and downtown, it was all downtown. And he could play boogie woogie like you wouldn't believe. I mean, really. So they had a competition on stage, you know, and Bobby Higginbotham, he came out and he played it. And the audience just, oh, that is. And I said to myself, I wonder how Clemente would sound like that. And so at home I would be practicing. And I'd hear a scream coming from the kitchen. My mother would say, "You play it right, or you ain't going anywhere this week." But the minute she'd go out the back door into the yard or something, I would experiment with it, you know? But,
who is your favorite musician?
what?
Your favorite musician?
My favorite musician? Well, I'm very much taken by beautiful sopranos. You mean composer?
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're all different, you know. It's like cigars, you know. You keep trying this one and trying that, but no, actually, first of all, you see, nobody could do this. Personalities. And it's almost like, oh, I was going to tell you, well, look at that, I just about blew it. There was a poem I read by Thomas More, the Irish poet. I even wrote part of it up. Did I really screw this up today? Well, at any rate, because it mentions that these, when you get into the music, it's like getting close to a person. And they're all, like the people sitting here, all of us are different. And these composers are different. Well, there are similarities, but, you know, Moore wrote, he said, the thing was with the 19th century poetry, a lot of it is kind of depressing. But he writes, when through life unblessed we rove, losing all that made life dear, should some notes we used to love in days of boyhood meet our ear, oh, how welcome breathe the strain, awakening thoughts that long have slept, kindling former smiles again. in faded eyes that long have wept. Music, oh, how faint, how weak. Language fades before thy spell. Why should feeling ever speak when thou canst breathe her soul so well? Music transmitting something that almost not, it goes directly into the, if you have a soul, maybe you don't have a soul, I don't, maybe there's no such thing, but it goes directly to the innards of the person. I mean, you have to respond. I mean, you know, I mean, even if one of the pieces during my teenage years, people played a lot, I always wanted to hear. Now, I don't mean to trivialize Debussy, but after a while, it got to be so repetitious that, and then someone ruined it for me, because he put some comedian in. John, Marcia. Oh, John, Marcia. John, Marcia. Oh, John. Oh, Marcia. You could go on with that till it gets obscene, but
Yes, I agree. We could go on and on and on.